The Galactic Council met in secret chambers far beyond the reach of any human sensors in a place so distant from Earth that even the most sophisticated human satellites could not hope to detect its presence, a gathering of species who had lived for millennia in the vastness of space, their power absolute, their reach incomprehensible. And yet one thing troubled them: the rapid rise of humanity. Earth had been a backwater for eons, barely aware of the stars beyond its atmosphere, and yet in a matter of centuries its inhabitants had begun to stretch into the void in ways no one expected, their technology advancing at an alarming rate each year, their military strength growing, their exploration of space unstoppable. It was no longer a question of if humanity would join the galactic community, but when, and with what consequences. The Council had watched humanity's progress with a mixture of curiosity and dread. They saw the potential in their tenacity, the ruthlessness in their survival instincts, the drive to conquer new frontiers, but they also saw the chaos they might unleash on the galaxy if left unchecked. The peaceful systems that had thrived under the Council's delicate balance were now at risk of collapsing under the weight of human ambition, a species so young yet so powerful, so unpredictable that their very existence threatened the fragile status quo. It was in this moment of existential crisis that the Council made a decision that would change the course of history. They would strike first. They would contain humanity before it became a true threat to the galaxy. They would not give Earth a chance to expand further. They would break its will and ensure that humanity would never rise to challenge their supremacy. The plan was set into motion quietly and without fanfare. A coalition of the galaxy's most influential and secretive species was formed. Some had never before collaborated openly. Their motivations were driven not only by fear of humanity, but by their own agendas. The insectoid Kelzar, ancient manipulators who controlled vast swaths of the galaxy's trade routes, feared humanity would disrupt their economy. The enigmatic Sci-Fi, a race of telepaths who prized their control over other minds, feared the unchecked growth of a species that could not be influenced by their abilities. The brutish Gornak, ever hungry for power and territory, saw an opportunity to expand their domain at humanity's expense, and so they all agreed to the unthinkable. They would orchestrate a war against Earth, a war designed to weaken humanity's resolve and break its spirit before it could fully realize its potential. The initial moves would be subtle strikes in the shadows, covered sabotage and misinformation designed to destabilize Earth's growing space infrastructure and military power. The first signs would be minor disruptions, subtle enough that Earth's leaders might dismiss them as accidents, but they would be the first wave in a series of attacks meant to confuse and fragment humanity's forces. As the Council's enemies worked in concert, humanity would have no idea what was coming. They would continue on with their lives, believing that all was well, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond their sky. And so the war began, not with a declaration, not with a battle, but with a whisper. A seed planted in the darkness of space, and Earth remained blissfully unaware of the cosmic chess game unfolding around it. As its people slept, the fate of the galaxy was being decided. The first signs of the conflict were so subtle that they were nearly imperceptible to those on Earth. Even to the most astute observers, the events appeared as nothing more than strange anomalies in an otherwise bustling world. Across Earth's space lanes, communication channels began to flicker and cut out seemingly at random. Ships navigating between colonies and trading hubs began to disappear without a trace. Entire fleets vanishing into the void. No distress signals, no signs of struggle. It was as though they had been swallowed up by the stars themselves. But to those who were paying close attention, the patterns emerged too quickly to be dismissed as coincidence. It was happening again and again. Ships from different sectors, different nationalities, all falling silent, as if something was deliberately interfering with their operations. Yet the public barely noticed. Governments and corporations issued statements claiming technical malfunctions or environmental anomalies. Those in power were quick to calm fears and provide plausible explanations, while a few murmured about the potential for hostile action in the outer colonies. The idea that this was the work of an organized enemy seemed impossible. Who could stand against humanity's rapidly expanding reach into space? A species so young, with a burgeoning fleet so advanced in technology that no one had dared to challenge it directly. But there was an unease now, a feeling that something was wrong. Only those who worked in the shadows understood the true nature of what was happening. The Galactic Council's attack was taking shape, but its methods were subtle, more akin to whispers than roars, working through intermediaries. Covered operatives from various alien species infiltrated Earth's space systems. Their orders were clear: cripple humanity's infrastructure before they could retaliate. They were to create a ripple effect that would disrupt Earth's technological backbone, sabotage vital space stations, engineering marvels that humans had built in their eagerness to explore and dominate the stars. Some of the sabotage was as simple as tampering with power grids. Others were more sophisticated strikes against the core of human innovation. The subtlety was key. If humans suspected they were under attack too soon, they would fight back too quickly, and the Council's fragile alliance would collapse under the weight of the combined forces of its enemies. Meanwhile, as Earth's governments scrambled to investigate the strange disappearances and growing instability in the outer colonies, they were met with nothing but walls of silence. Each investigation ran into dead ends and conflicting reports. Many of Earth's military leaders and intelligence officers privately suspected foul play, but there was no clear evidence to connect the anomalies to any organized force. No alien ships had been spotted, no communications intercepted, no trace of any technology that didn't belong to humanity itself. In the midst of this growing uncertainty, the Council's plan continued to unfold with chilling precision. Human leaders grew paranoid, but also complacent for every attack that was thwarted or simply misunderstood. The Council's agents moved one step closer to their goal. The covert operations ran seamlessly as Earth continued to build itself up for the eventual war it never knew had already begun. Even Earth's most seasoned space crews found themselves perplexed by the strange attacks that continued to hinder their work. Minor losses were chalked up to unforeseen complications, but in truth, the attacks were designed to disrupt humanity's ability to recover quickly and decisively. Without the technological stability it relied on, humanity would falter. But despite it all, humanity's indomitable spirit shone through as news of each new incident spread. Many dismissed it as mere coincidence, others saw it as a challenge to be overcome. No one had yet thought to connect these incidents with an alien force, and even those who suspected it never fully grasped the scale of what was unfolding. They just kept pushing forward as they always had, oblivious to the terrible forces working against them. The first strike was a success from the Council's perspective. Earth remained unaware of the true threat it faced. The seeds had been planted, and the war had begun. But even as the shadows crept across the stars, one thing remained certain. Humanity's resilience would soon come into play in ways the Council could never have predicted. As the covert sabotage continued, Earth's leaders struggled to keep up with the mounting series of mysterious setbacks. Every day, something new went wrong. Power grids failed without explanation. Critical supply lines to outer colonies were mysteriously severed, and data anomalies began to disrupt the day-to-day functioning of Earth's military and space operations. The oddities were dismissed at first as mere technical glitches or the result of growing pains in an expanding spacefaring civilization. But as the attacks grew more frequent, the reality became harder to ignore. At first, no one connected the dots. The disruptions seemed isolated, scattered across vast stretches of space. Trade ships from Mars, mining operations on Europa, and even supply missions to distant lunar bases. Each was hit, one after another, with no pattern anyone could discern. Rumors of sabotage began to surface, but were quickly silenced by those in power. The last thing Earth's leaders needed was panic. After all, what threat could lurk in the vastness of space when humanity had advanced so rapidly in its technological capabilities? Surely the universe would be far more concerned with the more established civilizations, not some upstart species from a backwater planet like Earth. But as Earth's space defense systems began to report strange fluctuations, communications jammed, systems hijacked by unknown forces, an uneasy feeling started to ripple through the ranks of the military. The first signs of something larger at play were felt by a few officers deep within Earth's top military and intelligence agencies. They began to put together the pieces of the puzzle, and the conclusions were terrifying. A series of high-level meetings were convened in secret to discuss the growing anomalies, but even as officials looked for patterns, the complexity of the situation only deepened. With each new setback, it became clear that Earth's adversaries were not acting like anyone expected. No ships had been fired upon, no communications intercepted, no fleets of alien invaders descending upon Earth. The attacks were surgical and calculated, focused on disrupting Earth's most vital systems. Communication satellites, advanced AI systems that coordinated military defenses, and the very infrastructure that allowed humanity to expand into the stars. It was as though Earth's enemies were learning, adapting, staying one step ahead. And still, the public remained unaware. The daily news cycles carried on as usual. Corporate leaders discussed new ventures into the asteroid belt. Celebrities appeared at award shows. Politicians argued over budgets. But in the background, behind the curtains, something was shifting. A handful of elite scientists and military strategists, growing increasingly alarmed, began to realize the disturbing truth. These weren't isolated incidents. This was a war. Humanity was under attack. But by whom? And why? By now, the sabotage had gone beyond minor disruptions. Entire supply convoys began to vanish into the void. Space stations designed to be unassailable were crippled in seconds. The military had begun to fight back, but each countermeasure seemed to be met with further setbacks. Human ingenuity, so rapid and relentless in its pace of innovation, now found itself ensnared in an unseen trap. Yet still, the Council's enemies, whoever they were, remained in the shadows. Humanity's most advanced space exploration vessels, once the pride of Earth's efforts, began to show signs of mysterious malfunctions. Some even disappeared without a trace, leaving nothing but empty space behind. Anomalies spread even to the deep space telescopes that kept watch over distant stars, as if something were deliberately blocking humanity's view of what lay beyond. It was then that the true nature of the attack became clear. This wasn't just a series of random strikes. It was a deliberate campaign to destroy Earth's ability to fight back before it even realized a war was happening. No alien fleet had arrived to announce a battle. No galactic declaration of war had been made. Instead, humanity's enemies were working slowly, methodically, beneath the surface of Earth's own technological marvels. It was a war that was not meant to be seen. Not yet. And yet, humanity's resolve began to crystallize. It was clear that whoever these enemies were, they underestimated Earth's ingenuity. While Earth's officials had been slow to grasp the nature of the conflict, there were those within humanity's ranks who understood what was at stake. They were already beginning to connect the dots, assembling the scattered pieces of a puzzle that would reveal the true face of the unseen war. But they were few and far between, working in isolation, and their warnings had yet to reach the ears of the general public. The clock was ticking, and Earth was on the verge of realizing something monumental. The greatest threat to their future wasn't the unknowns of space. It was the very forces that sought to keep them from exploring it. Humanity had no idea yet who their enemies were, but they would soon discover the shocking truth. The war had already begun, and the galaxy's most powerful forces had just underestimated humanity's ability to survive. The days after the string of disruptions grew tense and uncertain across Earth. While daily life continued with little awareness of the escalating situation, something had shifted. A few key officials within Earth's defense network, frustrated with the lack of tangible explanations, pushed harder for answers. And slowly, the unthinkable started to take form in their minds. The pieces were aligning in a way they couldn't ignore anymore. The strange disappearances, the unexplained technical failures, the sudden, seemingly random sabotage. It was all too coordinated to be chance. Something, or someone, was orchestrating this behind the scenes. It began with a breakthrough. A deep space probe, designed to monitor traffic in Earth's solar system, intercepted a faint but undeniable signal, a pattern of interference unlike anything seen before. The signal was encoded, too complex for a simple technical malfunction. Earth's brightest minds dug into the data and soon discovered the unimaginable. It wasn't a malfunction at all. It was an attack. But not just any attack. This was an attack aimed directly at Earth's infrastructure, using methods no one had even imagined. Within Earth's top military and intelligence agencies, alarms rang. A covert operation was initiated immediately. The first clue came from a once classified piece of technology, a satellite launched years ago, forgotten amid the chaos of human expansion. It had been silently recording alien signals from deep space, but what was most unsettling was that the transmissions weren't random. They weren't coming from any known enemy. The technology was outdated, its designs obsolete, yet it had picked up something large and terrifying, moving through the dark void of space. And now, it was clear. Humanity wasn't dealing with pirates, rogue groups, or even criminal syndicates. They were being attacked by something far bigger. The information was sent to the highest levels of government, where it was immediately classified. But word began to leak out. The truth was slowly unraveling. The strange interruptions on Earth were all part of a larger plan. A coordinated effort to weaken humanity, not just by crippling technology, but by isolating humanity from the rest of the galaxy. The message was clear. There were forces working against them, powerful forces whose reach extended far beyond anything Earth had ever dealt with. Meanwhile, Earth's public continued on as usual, unaware of the true scope of what was happening. News stations were reporting on new technological developments, corporate expansions, and the usual celebrity gossip. The government, despite the growing evidence of alien activity, issued reassuring statements to the public, downplaying the severity of the situation. Life carried on, but beneath the surface, everything was changing. Military personnel, tech experts, and scientists scrambled to figure out what could be responsible for this. The shock came when an intercepted transmission revealed the true nature of the forces arrayed against them. An encrypted communication, far more sophisticated than anything humanity could have designed, was decrypted by Earth's top intelligence agencies. It came not from a rogue group, not from the isolated corners of the galaxy, but from a unified force. A coalition of powerful alien species, coordinated by the very institutions that had once been seen as neutral observers of galactic affairs. The message was clear. The Galactic Council, the self-appointed rulers of the galaxy, had decided that humanity was too much of a threat to be allowed to continue expanding unchecked. The very force that had once prided itself on maintaining peace across the stars now saw humanity's rapid progress as a destabilizing force. The Council, made up of species who had existed for millennia, had chosen to strike preemptively. Earth was not to be left alone to grow. Humanity's rise was a threat, and it had to be quashed before it reached a point of no return. The shocking revelation hit Earth like a thunderclap. Humanity, so often seen as a fledgling species, was now the target of a galaxy-wide conspiracy, a war being waged against them by the most powerful collective force in the known universe. And worst of all, the attack had begun before humanity even knew what was happening. The Council had struck in the shadows, quietly dismantling humanity's ability to fight back, exploiting every vulnerability, and masking their presence so effectively that no one had seen it coming. As the realization spread among Earth's leadership, the question became inevitable. What could they do to survive against such an overwhelming force? Earth had no choice but to fight back, but they now understood the true scale of the war they had unknowingly stepped into. And as the stakes rose, humanity's spirit began to ignite. It would not be the first time that humanity, when pushed to the edge, had fought back against the odds. But this time, the enemy was far more powerful, far more ancient than anything humanity had ever encountered. The first response came not with weapons but with knowledge, the most valuable weapon humanity had. The pieces were falling into place, and the fight was only just beginning. With the truth now painfully clear, the world's leaders came to a brutal realization. Humanity was not merely fighting for territory, resources, or even survival. It was fighting for the right to exist at all. The Galactic Council's coalition of alien species, vast and ancient, had already shown that they could strike without warning and dismantle humanity's capabilities without so much as a visible confrontation. Earth's military and intelligence forces, although powerful, were now faced with an enemy they hadn't even known existed, let alone prepared for. It was a war of shadows and subterfuge, and humanity had just woken up to the fact that the galaxy's most powerful factions had set their sights on eradicating them before they could grow into a true threat. The first order of business was survival. Humanity had to stabilize its crippled infrastructure, rebuild its shattered communication systems, and protect the few remaining assets still under human control. But there was a problem. Humanity's technological advancements, once its crowning achievement, had been systematically targeted and sabotaged, and much of their cutting-edge weaponry, vital stations, and transport networks had been severely compromised. The Shadow War was working, yet humanity was determined to endure. Across the globe, Earth's brightest minds, the engineers, scientists, and military strategists, gathered to begin the impossible task of recovery. With a sense of urgency, they called upon the most advanced technologies at their disposal, working tirelessly to salvage what they could. Every resource was funneled into developing countermeasures, rebuilding satellites, and fortifying Earth's communication lines. The world united in a singular goal: to turn the tables and find a way to strike back at the unseen enemy. But it wasn't just technological ingenuity that would see them through this crisis. It was humanity's most defining trait: determination. Even in the face of such overwhelming odds, the spirit of resistance was unstoppable. People rallied together in ways never before seen on Earth. From the streets of the world's largest cities to the deepest military bunkers, a singular, unspoken conviction began to spread. Humanity would fight to the bitter end. And in that fight, they would have one advantage that no alien force could ever predict: the human will to never give up, to never surrender. It wasn't long before Earth's leaders realized that they couldn't hope to defeat the Galactic Council using conventional methods alone. Their enemies were simply too numerous, too sophisticated, and too prepared for any direct confrontation. But humanity was resourceful. The key to surviving, and eventually winning, lay in an unconventional strategy. They would have to turn the very technologies the Council had used to cripple them back against their foes. A small group of rogue scientists, working outside the watchful eyes of Earth's government, began investigating an area of space that had previously been dismissed by Earth's most advanced exploration teams. They'd suspected something was there, hidden in the folds of the galaxy, but no one had been able to get close enough. However, as Earth's technology had been disrupted and humanity found itself in a corner, desperate to find any advantage, this group of scientists found something unexpected: a hidden cache of ancient, long-forgotten technology buried deep in the stars. The technology, it seemed, was a remnant of a civilization far older than the Council, perhaps even older than the known universe itself. Its potential was staggering, more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. But the real breakthrough came not from the tech itself, but from its underlying principle. It was designed to communicate across time and space, far beyond the limitations of current technologies. This was humanity's key to turning the tide. But the Council was not blind. As soon as Earth's elite scientists uncovered this discovery, they were under attack. The shadows that had once stalked humanity's ships and stations were now focused directly on them. Determined to stop the blossoming threat before it could be fully realized, Earth's newfound hope was fragile, and with the stakes rising higher by the day, humanity's first true victory in this war would depend not on brute force, but on knowledge, on understanding the technology they had just unlocked and harnessing it before the Council could strike it down. Humanity's best minds worked feverishly, using the alien technology to create a powerful countermeasure: a deep space communications network capable of disrupting the Council's covert operations. It was a risky plan, too risky for many, but it was the only chance they had. If they could turn the tables, force the Council's enemies to operate in the open, humanity could finally take the fight to them. And with each passing day, the pressure mounted. The Council would not wait long. Humanity had one shot to survive and reclaim its place in the galaxy, and it was in this moment that they had to prove what they had always known, that no matter the cost, no matter the odds, humanity would never give up, never surrender, and never allow itself to be defeated. As the days bulled into weeks, humanity's resolve solidified. The small group of rogue scientists, now working in the highest levels of secrecy, had successfully integrated the ancient technology into Earth's own infrastructure. The new deep space communications network, based on principles far beyond anything humanity had ever known, was ready. It was humanity's ace in the hole, the one shot they had to strike back at the Galactic Council and its mysterious coalition of alien species. But the clock was ticking, and the window of opportunity was closing. Earth's defenses had been rebuilt, but not to the extent needed to face an enemy of the Council's caliber. They had no way of knowing when the next strike would come, or how brutal it would be. What was certain, however, was that humanity was no longer simply a target. It was now an active player in a galactic chess game, one that threatened to turn into a war for the ages. The first step in their plan was to disrupt the Council's shadow operations. Using the newly developed deep space network, humanity began sending coded signals into space, signals that would bypass the Council's interference and draw their attention to Earth's burgeoning capabilities. It was a gamble, one that could either expose humanity's vulnerability or force the Council to engage openly. Humanity needed to make a statement, to prove that it was no longer willing to sit quietly in the shadows of space, awaiting its fate. The moment Earth's first encrypted signal was sent into the depths of space, the response was almost immediate. What had once been a quiet, calculated war now erupted into a full-fledged conflict. A fleet of alien ships, sleek and deadly, appeared just outside Earth's orbit. The Council had made its move, an unmistakable declaration of war. For the first time in the history of humanity's spacefaring efforts, Earth's military mobilized to face a true galactic threat. The fleets, though outnumbered, were not as outclassed as the Council had expected. Humanity had learned quickly from its earlier setbacks, adapting its technology at an unprecedented rate. The new communication systems gave Earth a way to coordinate attacks, send real-time updates to fleet commanders, and even scramble the Council's own surveillance networks. The war was no longer happening in the shadows. The first battle was chaotic, with human and alien ships clashing in the vacuum of space. The Council's forces, confident in their technological superiority, had underestimated the ferocity of humanity's spirit. Earth's fleets, though smaller, fought with everything they had. The enemy ships, though formidable, found themselves caught off guard by the precision and adaptability of human tactics. Humanity had learned how to fight dirty, to use its wits, its creativity, and its will to survive in ways the Council could not anticipate. As the battle raged on, another breakthrough emerged. The rogue scientists who had uncovered the ancient technology had been working tirelessly, unlocking more secrets of the alien artifacts. They had discovered a weapon, a relic from a forgotten civilization, capable of altering the very fabric of space itself. It was dangerous, unpredictable, and powerful, too powerful for the Council to ignore. The weapon, if deployed correctly, could cripple the Council's fleets in an instant. But it was still untested, still in its infancy. Humanity's top engineers worked around the clock, trying to integrate the weapon into Earth's defense systems. Time was running out. The alien ships were closing in, and the full force of the Council's fleet would soon arrive. Then, in the midst of the battle, the impossible happened. Humanity's forces, outnumbered and on the brink of defeat, made a desperate move. The new weapon, a gravitational destabilizer, was activated. It unleashed a pulse of energy so intense that it caused the fabric of space around the enemy fleet to warp and twist, distorting their ability to fight. For a moment, the Council's ships were completely disabled, their systems scrambling, their once advanced technology rendered inert. It was the opening humanity needed. The Council's forces, momentarily blind and disoriented, were vulnerable. Humanity's fleets surged forward, pushing them back. In that moment, Earth's ships began to turn the tide of battle. Though humanity was still far from victory, it had sent a message to the galaxy. Earth would no longer be a silent spectator. Humanity had risen, and it would not be easily extinguished. The Council's forces, shaken by the unexpected resistance, retreated temporarily. They had underestimated humanity's resilience, and now they faced an unprecedented situation. An enemy that had survived their silent war and was now fighting back with everything it had. For the first time since the war began, Earth's people felt a surge of hope. They were not just surviving, they were winning. The brief but decisive victory at Earth's doorstep sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time since the war began, humanity stood not on the defensive but on the offensive, proving that despite the Galactic Council's centuries of dominance, they had underestimated the ferocity and ingenuity of the human race. The momentary disruption of the Council's fleet was a victory, but it was only a small part of a much larger and more complex conflict. As the dust settled from the first battle, humanity knew that this war was far from over. The Council would not simply accept this failure. They would retaliate, and their wrath would be swift and unforgiving. But Earth had proven something crucial in the fight, that humanity could fight back. In the aftermath of the battle, Earth's military began to regroup and expand its efforts. The weapon that had crippled the Council's fleet, the gravitational destabilizer, was now integrated into humanity's space defenses, but the question remained, could humanity replicate this success on a larger scale? And more importantly, could they build on this victory before the Council had a chance to recover and strike again? Across Earth, the feeling was one of cautious optimism. People who had once seen themselves as insignificant players on the galactic stage now recognized that humanity had not only survived an invisible war, but had managed to make its mark on the galaxy. The unity that had once been seen as a vague ideal was now tangible, with nations and corporations joining forces for a single goal: to ensure that Earth remained a force to be reckoned with. In deep space, the Council's response came quickly and with devastating force. Fleets larger and more numerous than anything humanity had ever seen converged on Earth's solar system. The calm, calculated nature of their previous strikes had shifted. This time, they were sending everything they had to crush humanity before it could truly organize a counterattack. The stakes were higher now, and the Council's leaders were determined to squash the growing rebellion before it could spread beyond Earth. But humanity was ready. The victory at Earth's doorstep had galvanized not just military forces, but also the brightest minds in science and technology. The gravitational destabilizer had been a revelation, but it was only the beginning. Earth's scientists and engineers worked in secret, developing new weapons, systems, and technologies at a pace that would have been unimaginable only months before. The balance of power was shifting, slowly but steadily, toward Earth's favor. In the heart of Earth's military command, the Strategic Operations Team began formulating the next phase of the counterattack. Earth's fleets had been bolstered by new ships, upgraded with the latest technology developed in the wake of the previous battle. The military began training its forces in new tactics, leveraging humanity's ability to adapt quickly and think outside the box. The battle against the Council was no longer about brute force. It was about outsmarting an ancient bureaucratic system that had long relied on its own superiority. And as Earth prepared for the next round of conflict, the other factions in the galaxy watched closely. The Council's power had been challenged, and some began to question whether the ancient order could remain intact. Rumors swirled of rising rebel movements, not just on Earth but throughout the galaxy, inspired by humanity's unexpected stand. If Earth could survive and thrive in the face of overwhelming odds, who was to say that other oppressed species couldn't do the same? The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and it was no longer certain that the Council would retain control. But even as humanity readied itself for the inevitable Council retaliation, there was a deeper realization growing among the leaders of Earth. This war was no longer just about survival. It was about redefining humanity's place in the galaxy. The victory had given humanity a taste of what was possible, a taste of the power they could wield if they united behind a common cause. And this newfound confidence was not just for Earth alone. It was for the entire galaxy, a message to all the species who had long lived under the shadow of the Council. Humanity had come to stay, and it would never again cower in the darkness of space. With this in mind, Earth's leaders began preparing for a bold new initiative. They would no longer wait for the Council to come to them. They would take the fight directly to the heart of the Galactic Council itself. It was time to bring the war to their doorstep, to force the Council to face humanity on their terms. The counterattack was coming, and humanity's greatest weapon was no longer its technology. It was its unyielding spirit, a spirit that would not be crushed, no matter the cost. The war had reached a tipping point, and Earth was ready to take its place as a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. The Council's reign was about to be challenged like never before. The time had come. Humanity, no longer just an insignificant species on the edge of the galaxy, was ready to face the Galactic Council in its own domain. The carefully orchestrated counterattack had been building for months, and the moment of reckoning had finally arrived. Earth's fleets, emboldened by the success of their previous victory, now stood ready to take the war directly to the heart of the Council's power. The lines had been drawn, and the stakes had never been higher. It was no longer about mere survival. It was about proving that humanity could no longer be ignored, and that its future in the galaxy would be defined on its own terms. Earth's military command had carefully studied the Council's operations, its weaknesses, and its history. The Galactic Council, for all its might, had been a bureaucracy at its core, relying on long-standing traditions, hierarchies, and outdated methods of governance. Humanity's greatest advantage, it turned out, was its ability to innovate and adapt at a speed the Council could never match. While the Council had relied on power, humanity relied on ingenuity, and that made all the difference. In the hours before the final confrontation, a sense of urgency pulsed through Earth's fleets. Every soldier, every officer, every engineer knew what was at stake. This would be humanity's defining moment. The decision was clear. They would strike at the very heart of the Galactic Council's power, and they would not rest until they had done so. The fleets assembled in orbit around Earth, a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Sleek, powerful ships equipped with cutting-edge technology. The gravitational destabilizers, the weapon that had so effectively disabled the Council's fleet, had been upgraded and multiplied. Earth was no longer fighting with only its wits and its will. It was fighting with the most advanced arsenal humanity could muster. But despite the technological advancements, there was something more that gave Earth's forces an edge. The raw determination of a species that had always fought to survive, and now was fighting to thrive. With a final command, the fleets surged forward, slipping through space at breakneck speeds toward the Council's capital world, a planet that had long been the heart of galactic governance. The journey was perilous, fraught with dangers, but the Earth fleets were undeterred. They knew this was the only way to ensure the survival of their world and their future. The Council had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they would feel the full weight of Earth's defiance. As Earth's forces approached the Council's capital, the full might of the Galactic Council's fleet stood ready to greet them. But something had changed. The Council's once perfectly orchestrated strategies were in disarray. The gravitational destabilizers had begun to take their toll. The technology humanity had harnessed was disrupting the very fabric of the Council's operations, throwing their fleets into chaos. Systems were failing, communications scrambled, and for the first time in centuries, The Council's forces were forced to fight on humanity's terms. The battle was fierce, unlike any conflict the galaxy had ever seen. Earth's ships weaved through the chaos, taking advantage of every weakness in the Council's defenses. The gravitational destabilizers worked in concert with human ingenuity, turning the tide of battle. The Council's fleets, overwhelmed and unable to respond with their usual precision, faltered. Humanity had come for them, and they had arrived with a vengeance. In the heart of the battle, as the Council's power was crumbling, Earth's most daring move took place. A team of elite commandos, equipped with advanced technology, infiltrated the Council's central command facility on their capital world. Their mission was clear: to disrupt the Council's leadership and bring an end to their reign once and for all. With pinpoint precision, they disabled the key systems that kept the Council's bureaucracy alive, rendering their leadership powerless. And then, just as the final blows were being struck, Earth's leaders sent a single unifying message to the galaxy. Humanity was no longer the fledgling species that had once been at the mercy of the Council's rule. Earth had stood tall in the face of annihilation and emerged victorious. The message was clear: no longer would any species or power dictate humanity's future. Earth would chart its own course, its destiny no longer shaped by alien forces, but by the spirit of its people. The Galactic Council, in its final moments, realized the depth of its mistake. They had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back, its ability to adapt and overcome. The war that had once seemed so hopeless for Earth had become a resounding victory, and in its wake, a new era was born. Humanity had claimed its place in the galaxy, not through force alone, but through the strength of its character, its unity, and its unyielding determination. The galaxy would never forget the day when Earth, a small blue planet on the edge of the cosmos, stood up to the most powerful force the universe had ever known, and won. And from that day forward, humanity's name would be etched into the history of the galaxy, forever remembered as the species that refused to be forgotten.